Okay, let me just adjust cameras first because it did not work out. But
Yep.
we are live-ish. Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? Give me a hot second to get everything organized. But if you all want to say hi to Passion and welcome her on in, I would love to see that. See how many people stuck around after that 20-minute BRB.
Oh, it would be smart to actually
Ah!
have the stream open in another
Ah!
window so I can see the chat. No, it was open. I just didn't
Uh-huh.
have it like chat-wise. You can check the
Oh,
viewer list if you
I
don't
will be
believe
checking the
me.
viewer list.
Oh, I will ask one thing out of
Huh?
like personal preference.
Oh,
If you could
sure.
flip my cam, I would love that. I'm like the
You're like, I
Mariah Carey now
only
of Twitch. Sorry.
stream from this angle. Um, yes,
Do you know how to do it?
I'm a streaming professional. Ta-da!
We shall see.
Okay,
I wait.
are you good? Are you
Okay.
good? Would you like me?
Fine.
Do you want me to zoom more?
Yeah.
Do you want to be good?
I think you could. No, it's
Actually,
fine.
we could be the
It's all
same
good.
size. Like a general rule. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, everyone. So we are going to get started. Thank you all so much for waiting. I am going to get into the business of the podcast, and then Passion and I'm so excited to have Passion here. She's been someone that I have like really admired for a while in terms of like the content and whom I have enjoyed many of her streams before. So I hope you all give Passion a lovely welcome. But to start off, okay, so hi everyone, my name is Sierra. Welcome to Myst Minutes, a podcast about the passions and the projects of those that are working in games, whether you're content creators, game developers, or games researchers. Of course, I am Sierra Myst. I am everyone's favorite lemon lime flavored drag queen from space, of course. And I am joined by the iconic, legendary Passion. Passion, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello, I'm PassionsPlanet. I'm a very seductive trans content creator here on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, oh God,
Mhm.
SoundCloud. That you can find me in all sorts of places at PassionsPlanet, and I just
I love that.
create fun shit.
Now, I like specifically one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on this podcast was specifically to talk about some of the cool shit that you did in this last year. I want to hear from you. What was your high moment of like 2019? Because I know you were a bit on and off in terms of your streaming schedule, but I think there were some clear highlights, and so I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what your highlight was.
Okay. So beginning of the year, there weren't any streams, and then I realized that I really wanted to do something music based. So I kept treading with the content of just being like, oh, maybe I should do content that's more like DJ based, or maybe I should do something that's more like visually, essentially what
Yeah.
people were doing with like digital drag shows, but making it more of a me, like what, look at me type of deal, rather than everyone collectively contributing. And then I kind of stumbled upon the idea of just being like, okay, so Pride Month is coming up. Let's do something like a shablam for like streams, and then we'll do like a DJ set. So in the build up of that, I decided to get a bunch of queer content creators, active allies, because we want allies who are actually, making their mark of actually moving
Yeah.
something rather than just using the tag. And just like getting people who have generally supported me throughout all of like
Mhm.
my Twitch career per se. And so I asked them to pick a song of their choice, record a video of themselves introducing the song, saying Happy Pride, and then I fiddled along with it, edited my own kind of like takes on the music videos, own edits, pre-prepared like edits of the songs, mixes, and also other various mixes made by other artists and the original tracks. And then I just kept doing that in between June. And during June, I then also did creating
Mhm.
Sims characters and telling like queer
Yeah.
stories like Marsha B. Johnson and going into fortunately I didn't get to do the Paris is Burning episode because I just wasn't feeling up to par and I was
Mhm.
very overwhelmed with the DJ set. But that was another one that was planned. I also went into Harvey Milk and just try to like educate the community that I have on these like
Yeah.
landmark queer icons. And amongst that, I was just editing up, and then eventually the end of Pride Month happened, and I just decided to do, I think
Mhm.
it was like 6 or 7
Yeah, it was really
hours of
long.
DJing. Yeah. Yeah. And that included drag performances, and then everything that I mentioned before. And we managed to raise, I think it was, I think it was just under 1.5K
Yes.
for
Yeah.
Color of Change.
Which is
So
incredible.
that's
Yeah. And
that was the
so,
moment.
especially for like me, when I look at all of that kind of work, it was the tying of like this historical and this like educational experience, like into your own content creation, but also with a game as well. Because that could have just been you sat there with a PowerPoint, right? Being like, let's talk queer history. But what was, yeah, you should have done that with
I
some
should have done
lovely
that.
clip art of like a brick or whatever being tossed. But what
Oh
for you was
gosh.
like the key here about wanting to work with like the Sims, and specifically kind of like, was it just a tool for you to be able to tell this story, or was there, what was behind all of that?
I think for because previously for June of 2019, I think, yeah, 2019, I was doing a queer related game
Hmm.
every day of June. And I was like, okay, and I ended up mostly just doing The Sims during that because they were so inclusive from the get go. And for me doing kind of like queer history, I
Hmm.
definitely thought like Sims was a no brainer. And it was an easy one to just be like, okay, you know, there is gender inclusivity and there
Yeah.
is a lot that can be represented here. Not that I was specifically playing with the characters themselves and just only creating them in Creator Sim, but it was something that I thought could be used as a way of showing a queer inclusive game while also
Yeah.
educating people
Absolutely.
about these people. And it just, I don't know, it was just a no brainer. I wanted to talk to my community about these powerful people, prominently focusing on like Black queer people, because I think that was just a monumental thing to talk during that time because there was a lot of talk regarding Black Lives Matter. And I just wanted to put the focus
Hmm.
on Black lives during June because it's often the area that gets
Yeah.
forgotten, unfortunately, during Pride Month. And it just, it just
Yeah.
felt necessary
No, and
to
it
do that.
was, I mean, I really enjoyed the Sim segments. I thought they were like really obviously like well put together and like well thought out and very like unique in terms of content. But like when I also think about your traditional content, I think of something very unique as well. And I think it's a bit a departure from this kind of like educational Sims content. So for those of you that are like maybe are unfamiliar with like what you should expect on like a passion stream, um, I mean, tell them about the Desperate Housewives. Tell them about the Hit and Run.
Oh gosh. So yeah, those were my first
Mhm.
streams as I decided to come back. Fully as a trans woman, I decided to make a comeback on stream
Mhm.
using no cam, just mic. And I was like, okay, let's play these absolutely twisted games
Yeah.
and let's have fun. So I decided to play Desperate Housewives, the video game released
Uh-huh.
in 2006 for PC. There's me going on like the entire cast list now. Um, it's a monumental game, very underrated, and you play as a Desperate Housewives in a sim-like environment, and you sleep with the husbands, and you
So
work out a
now,
murder
how does that
mystery.
tie into the
So
canon games? Are you one of the characters, or are you this
I
new?
know you're
Okay.
like a new character. So I don't think it's canon. I'll have to ask, Eva
Yeah. Thank
Longoria. I'll
you.
send her a
Yeah.
DM after this and ask her. But yeah, all of the characters are in it. They I don't know if they were scanned, but they're
Right.
definitely made to look like them too. And they
Mhm.
provided
And so
voice acting
what's
as well.
the like relationship between like that
But
kind of
yeah.
content and then like this educational like queer content? Like what's this, is there a connection at all?
Ooh. I think I just like providing happy content for people. I like escapism, and for me, I, I will plead the fifth and just be like, I do watch my own content, and I want to produce
Mhm.
stuff that I would enjoy myself. I have even spent time just sitting there watching my own VOD and being like, "Oh my gosh, she's kind of funny,"
It's
and then
you.
I was like, "Oh, well, she's got a point." um, but yeah, I just I make sure that people would appreciate while also stuff that I would also enjoy. And I think that's very key to making content yourself is that you make stuff that you can sit back and actually rewatch. I know as much as it took me a hot minute to kind of be like,
Yeah.
ooh, to watching myself back, but you really have to just sit there and be like, am I enjoying this? And if I'm not enjoying this, should
Right.
other people be watching this? And I know that sounds very critical to say, but you just have to make sure that you can retrospectively look back on and be like,
Well,
that
I
was great.
definitely think that makes sense
So
because when we think about like streaming, even in our own little, LGBTQIA plus bubble, it's still very oversaturated, right? And so I think the
yeah,
content that you create has to stand out in some way, whether that's a skill thing, something more specific about the content itself or about the person. There has to be something that stands.
yeah, it took me a while to kind of recognize that because, once upon a time I was just a
Yeah.
twink playing Just Dance on stream, and it yeah, I really did enjoy it, but I started to recognize that I really was just melding in with the first follows, and it wasn't something that I intentionally intended to do, but it was just something that, you know, when you are portraying yourself in that way, you do get those type of people, and I felt like I started to meld in with the content that I wasn't necessarily trying to create. I was just trying to create kind of like goofy content that could be, give
Yeah.
someone like a smile on their face, and instead it was giving people a smile on their
Yeah.
face in a different way,
Yeah.
and I didn't want that. So I just had to sit back and kind of like question, okay, what
Mhm.
games do I want to play? And what games do I, have on the backlog? What have I never played? What do I love? What do I appreciate? And kind of give my unique commentary spin on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
yeah,
you
just goof
mentioned
about on
like
it.
that escapism was kind of like a big like part in term of the content. Is that always like is that something that runs through in terms of like the games that you like to play and like the experiences that you enjoy in general?
I'm I think as a kid, yes. But then I often go back to the games that I did play as a kid.
Mhm.
So I think that tells an evident story of just like I like
Right.
going back to my safe space of gaming. And usually it's games like Simpsons Hit and Run that give me that kind of like serotonin that I
Yeah.
wanted so badly as a kid. And yeah, I think escapism is very
Mhm.
key to gaming for me. Trying to think.
Well,
But you gave me a big question. I'm like,
I'm the
oh,
Larry King of Drag.
um,
Yeah.
I think so. Because I think
Mhm.
even when I'm playing like dance games, I do have like a rather
Mhm.
big obsession with dance games. And I think dancing has always been something that I wanted to do as a kid. And I think even now it allows me to give that expression that I've
Yes.
never been allowed to do, or it's something that I've suppressed over years. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Um,
escapism.
and then kind of going back to the Pride event specifically, like, did you find difficulty in trying to like merge queer education with like even if the game itself was more inclusive? Did you still find difficulty in trying to like bring out the queer education or create that content?
So I will now confess, I usually made the like notepad document of like the information that were key
Mhm.
things like an hour before. And I know that's not the way to go when you're trying to be educational, but
Yeah.
I just wanted it to be very carefree. I want it to be, my own relationship with these people and what I've done to educate myself about it, like such as watching like Milk or um, really delving into documentaries about Marsha P. Johnson and just things like that. I will have to say I had to use a
Yeah.
lot of CC in order to kind of like
Yeah.
scrape through and create these characters because at the time, especially when you're making black characters, the Sims were lacking when it comes to skin
Yeah.
tones. Thank
Yeah.
God it's changed drastically now. But yeah, it took a lot to be able to
Mhm.
create them authentically. But I I found it pretty easy. I will say like it just gradually came along when I was picking outfits. I was talking about, why this character would maybe be a bit more covered up or when talking about like, altering bodies and stuff like that, why it was maybe problematic for me to alter this
Mhm.
trans woman's body on a game because people wouldn't think about that
Yeah.
when you're recreating a trans woman on a game and how easy it is to just
Mhm.
play with the sliders and stuff like that. It was making them as accurate as I could while also picking on why it was possibly problematic to do these things or why it's so easy
Mhm.
to be able to do this on a video game
Yeah.
and
No,
things like
absolutely.
that.
And so do you have like a background like in terms of like queer education or any like sex and gender? No, just like
No. No, so
mhm.
I did film, a couple years ago, and I
Mhm.
decided to do queer film as a staple point for like I was the only one in the class, a bunch of like headies and everything, so doing, queer
Yeah.
film as my subgenre was,
Mhm.
it wasn't judged. Everyone kind
Yeah.
of like was encouraging it, but it stood out upon like Marvel films and everything else. And I was sitting there like, right, so we're going to talk about Calling by Your Name and how. So, no, it's just I've just really tried to get really involved in
Mhm.
queer things outside of Drag Race, particularly because that was
Yeah.
kind of like my opening door. And once that got more problematic and questionable, I decided to really like shift away from that and go towards
Yeah.
what made Drag Race, aside from
Yeah.
like America's Next Top Model and stuff like that, like the influences
Mhm.
that were brought into that. And from there, I don't know, I got very inspirational about
Mhm.
like talking about queer history. I've always like strayed away um, from talking about it, but for some reason, when streaming, I always felt such an empowerment to be able to do so because I had the platform. And I've always stood by that. If you even have the smallest platform and you mention one thing, it just grows on to another person
Absolutely.
and they're able to repeat that. So I've just always tried to like shove as much information as I can
And I
down
think
people's throats when
there's
streaming.
something very specific about queer history, right? Which in that it's like a history that we find ourselves, right? And it's
Yeah.
oftentimes been hidden or like obscured from us, and in the cases of some queer people, it's been completely inaccessible to them, and to this day don't know their queer history, right?
Even the older stuff from the
Yeah.
60s and 70s is, like, long lost. When you think of films and things like that, it's just gone. No, people wanted the iconic things from the 60s and 70s. They didn't want some sort of, like,
Yeah.
queer film made by some artsy man. Um, like, the original film and the original reels of Andy Warhol tapes and stuff like that,
Mhm.
they're just not looked after. But now that he's proclaimed and hailed as this magical queer man, people now
Yeah.
want them again, but no one cared back then. People were just happy to just do
Yeah.
willy-nilly with it and throw it
Yeah.
around. But I think, we're finally getting to a
Mhm.
point where it's accessible, and I think people are now able to actually be able to view, queer history overall through, like, a lens that is
Mhm.
able to be
Yeah.
grabbed on. If you look at Netflix, you have Disclosure, you have The Queen from 1967, you have, even as much
Yeah.
as we hate him, we have RuPaul, and that for a queer kid is
Yeah.
such a
Absolutely.
drastic thing.
I guess then, like, since we just had that man's name in our mouth, um, when I
Yes.
first discovered your content, you were on Twitch as a drag artist, and now, I mean, we've had chats about this, in DMs and stuff, but I guess where do you sit right now with that content?
I I think I don't so I think drag for me was definitely my entry step
Mm.
into discovering my identity, but I don't necessarily see myself as a drag
Mm.
artist to any extent anymore. I think I can still do performances, but whenever I do participate in drag shows, I don't
Yeah.
participate as a drag queen. It's just
Mhm.
ultimately performance for me. But then again, saying that, I um I maybe did 2 drag
Yeah.
streams out of all of that time that I
Yeah.
was under a particular drag team. So,
Yeah.
a bit of irony there that you say that, but but no, it's, every time I did do drag, and
Mhm.
most of the times it was off stream, I felt so much escapism, I felt so much realism, more importantly, like, every time I was in drag, it felt
Mhm.
awful to take off the character because I was starting to realize that the character wasn't so much a character. It was more
Yeah.
of like an embodiment of myself. And it was a being that I was trying so hard to take as an excuse, an artistic excuse. And instead of just being like, no, this is me, I was instead just kind of like wrapping it up and just, because ironically, I did, I had
Yeah.
the drag name Passion Pit, which is an ode to Mr. Michael Angelakos of Passion Pit. Um, But no, it's kinda come full circle regarding that because I took passion from that, and I recognized that passion was me, and then, I will give an extra, exclusive kinda tea right now. I
Mhm.
did reach out to Passion Pit, within the last few weeks, and he kinda gave, like, his blessing, and he was overwhelmed by the fact that I, kind of, you know,
Yeah.
took an ode with his name and, the band name, and yeah, he kinda got a little bit
Aw.
emotional in regards to that, but it's nice that I got his kind of like blessing in regards to using Passion as my name. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't want to get emotional, but it
Yeah.
kind of hit like a very soft spot, and it felt really nice to kind of get that,
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
recognition. Passion Pit, for anyone who doesn't
Yes.
know, is an incredible indie band. They have such hits such as Sleepyhead and Take a Walk. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Music.
Yeah, just
Sorry,
plug
I'm just
away.
plugging away right now, but uh, yeah, it felt it just comes full circle because as much as I, you know, kind of used their name
Yeah.
as like an innuendo thing when in drag, it became so much for myself because it was a
Yeah.
descriptive term for myself. And
Mm.
I think passion suits me as much as many may disagree. I think I'm a very passionate person. And as you talk about on this podcast, like we're talking about our passions and everything. And, you know, ultimately you had to get me or else it would have been
Yeah,
wrong for you
absolutely.
to do so.
I mean, like I even think about, you know, the way that my drag has impacted myself, like in similar ways. Like I think they're, you know, as an art form, drag is very transformative, very on a surface level. But I think for many, it can also have this transformative, like, power of like understanding more about yourself, like that ability to explore these kinds of areas. Like, yes, I paint myself blue and I do all this and I do all that. But at the end of the day, I do feel that Sierra has taught me so much about myself, and that, you know, I don't want to take off the blue sometimes because I do like some of those parts about of Sierra. And for me, it's become, how do I take those parts, you know, into, you know, the non-Sierra times. Um, yeah,
It's a journey, and I
yeah,
know it's so cliche to say that, but it's just I didn't recognize this when I was
yeah.
just doing drag. I thought it was just, you know, I was watching drag queens on YouTube, and I was, you know, watching Drag Race actively, and I just thought it was a way of just, you know,
Hmm.
celebrating like the pop stars I loved, and it was like it was my way of being Britney, it was my
Yeah,
way of being like Kesha, and it was just it was just the escapism for me. And then I found out that, you know, the escapism was
yeah,
actually, you know, my gender identity. And slowly over time, I just started to take away from
yeah,
drag and just put it into myself. So it was an easy, you know, click and realize situation. But it's then when you retrospectively look back on it and you think, was I really suppressing myself that much that I really felt a need to
right.
label it as an artistic outlet rather than, you know, just confessing
Yeah.
and just being like, I'm trans? Not that that goes for the same for
No,
you, but there's
for
definitely an
sure.
aspect that you take from, you know, the character that you create or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
persona that you create. And you start to recognize that there are, you know, bits of
Hmm.
you that you've never recognized into that character, and you think, well, hang
Yeah.
on, I want her.
Well,
Like,
that's,
can I
yeah.
take her out
And that's kind of like
and
where I've
like put them
landed
on
at this
myself?
point, where Sierra is an aesthetic, right? This is an aesthetic that I enjoy. But Sierra and myself out of drag are 100% actually the same person at this point. And I think that was kind of the journey for me personally, is that these two people are the same. But Sierra is just
Yeah.
a
The only
blue.
difference is that you're just, you know, putting. I would say it's just a way
Yeah,
as you're putting on a different outfit. I don't even
yeah,
disassociate like the blue from you anymore because it's just
yeah.
I don't see it as abnormal. And, you know, maybe everyone's pointing at me and just be like, but
You
she's
know what?
blue.
I'm the blue lady. So
but I think it's I think over the past decade I've learned to just really like let down my guard in terms of
yeah,
the way people express themselves. And I think, you know, if you
yeah.
want to be blue, pop off. Like,
No,
let's
exactly.
go. You know, I've always loved that Eiffel 65 song. And I think it should, yeah, we should all be
I think
blue.
we should,
I
I
think
think
we should
everyone
all
should
be blue,
try. I think
to
everyone should
quote
try and be blue
Victoria
at least
Justice.
once. You know, stain your tub. Not that hard. um. Oh yeah.
Do you
Like,
actually?
I take it off now in a
Oh,
different way, but before I was taking it off in the shower, and there's like this ring of blue around the base of it from the makeup coming off and just staining. Um. But I don't do that anymore.
do
I
you
do the
just do the
bodysuit now,
bodysuit
and then
now?
I've got like a foolproof technique to get it off my face without having to get in the shower. Because before I used to get into the shower and like scrub
Whew.
with like makeup remover and still not have everything off. So
See, the only time I considered that was when I did Marge
Uh-huh.
Simpson once for Halloween. So I opted for the blue,
Yeah.
not the blue, the yellow. Sorry,
Yeah.
Marge is going for her Avatar era. Um, I did just opted for a yellow bodysuit, and then I did like the yellow paint. But even then, it just like I it like
Mhm.
crumbed off throughout the night. So the fact that you're able to just keep all of this up throughout a whole like
Yeah, I've
stream is
like, I
just beyond
mean, if
me.
I'm gonna be the blue lady, have put like a lot of thought and effort into like,
You have to
like
nail
if you're
it.
gonna
Yeah.
do blue all the time, it's got to be perfect. Some of my biggest pet peeves are like, even like just like this little bit here that like pokes through. It's like, oh, I didn't take it down
hmm
low enough, and that's my problem. Like breaking the illusion of the blue is like such an issue for me. I mean, like when I'm gaming, like who cares? Yeah.
Did that? Yeah, I
It
was
does
gonna say the
it
hands
does
must bother
bother me, and
you.
I have the little gloves, but
You need to like the Incredible gloves or something. You know, like the superhero
well,
ones that have like the little like
I have these
wing
little
almost
things.
on the cuff. See, that's not the Incredibles
No,
though.
you're right. But like I have a couple gloves, but then doing the whole stream wearing gloves is always like a big problem. Um
What do you have more difficulty with? Is it the like
it's just the
mouse
idea
work,
of
or
like
is it?
wearing gloves and like tippity tapping at a keyboard. Like it's just the feeling of
Oh,
it.
you could always get one of those like old lady ones. You know when they like wear them to like scroll through their phone,
The little
the
like,
ones with the little
yeah.
like
I could do
phone
that.
thing on the. Yeah,
But enough about me and my blue hand issues.
sorry.
I yeah,
I wanted
the
them to
blue
get the
hand
gossip.
gossip. um there was another what looked like a really big moment for you. And I will say it, for me it came out of nowhere. Hadn't heard anything from you in a while, hadn't seen anything. And then all of a sudden I see um Passion is going up against a DJ battle against Diplo for this Fuser game, and I was like, "This is a joke." Like Passion
What is
is
this
making
spam
a
email?
joke right now. Like she's gone into her MS Paint and she like cut out Diplo and put them on a
Yeah,
poster. Yeah,
I mean, I did make that,
but like I was like,
but
that can't possibly be real. And then I like looked it up and like
Ugh.
you and then I watched it and you you went against Diplo in a Fuser DJ battle. And so I'd love to hear about um that process kind of like from start to finish, right?
Yeah, so I knew that they were looking for people to do this DJ battle situation, and I was looking forward to Fuser as it is because someone who
Yeah.
already makes like mashups in their own time and remixes and things like that, I
Yeah.
wanted a part of it like immediately. And the second I saw that Diplo was a part of it, I
Yeah.
was like, let's go. Didn't even second guess it. Didn't even think like, oh, I'm midway through my
Yeah.
transition. Maybe I don't want to present myself yet. I just went, let's go. I don't care. And so I applied, didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, probably not going to take, like trans woman wanting to participate or someone who doesn't fit, like the passing stereotype of being a trans woman or someone who isn't
Hmm.
even actively making content. Because at this time, I was a few months away from my Pride stream and I wasn't making
Yeah.
any streams myself. And I just decided to make a quick little video saying why to pick me and stuff like that. It was a competition in some extent, but I think, you know, they were also looking for like social media present kind of like people or like streamers or people who knew how to
Yeah.
handle talking and doing
Yeah.
more presentable type of things. So I did that, heard nothing for a couple of weeks, and they randomly hit me up
Okay.
and were just like, yeah, we want you. And went through kind of like that kind of like progress of
Hmm.
sorting out that situation,
Yeah.
and then the stream happened. Like, honestly, it was, like,
Yeah.
such a weird blur because all of a sudden there was no communication, and then a week before, it was like,
Okay.
"Let's
And
go."
so I mean, what did that look
So,
like into, because this was a game that wasn't even out, right?
yeah, so
Okay.
I got shipped a PC, and
Yeah.
it was, like, a pre-release situation. That was the only thing on there. It was a copy of Steam and then the game. And, and then the rest was what they had to set up. So it was the type of deal where they had to like log into the PC and
Oh
like
wow,
control
okay.
it because they wouldn't let me do anything because it was
Yeah.
all stuff that you could leak and stuff like that.
So
So
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was I felt scary just even like talking about it because of the whole situation of like you have a game that no one else has
Yeah.
seen like unreleased songs of and stuff like that. So I was like, all right,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
go. Like that peppermint
Did you
situation.
get a chance to like
And
practice to play the game to experience it a bit? Yeah.
yeah. So we had like almost a week of practice. So right as soon as we got the PC, because of me being in the UK and I was the only UK person, it was a very like custom situation. So getting a PC
Yeah.
from the US during a
Yeah.
pandemic, not the easiest task. So once I got that, I was practicing, loved the game, and
Yeah.
then the day came and I
Uh-huh.
was like,
So
great. Because we had
right.
rehearsals,
Yeah.
but he wasn't there. So it was a
Okay.
stand-in during those times. And I had to mentally prepare myself and be like,
So do
Diplo
you
is going to be sat there.
okay,
And I
so
didn't want to
I
geek
at
out.
this point like you like Diplo, right? Like okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've stand
Okay.
Major Lazer for quite some time. I've loved Diplo's production work. He's
Yeah.
worked with my faves. I mean, Britney, he's worked with her a handful of times. Um,
Mm.
Kesha, Rihanna, Beyonce, like the list
Right.
goes on and on and on. And it was I
Yeah.
don't know, it was a scary deal to just be sat face to face towards someone
Yeah.
that you have looked up to in the music
And I mean,
industry for
okay,
quite some
so
time.
I mean, they, we could have a little meet your heroes like discussion moment, but like, how did that actually pan out? I mean, I saw what happened live, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
literally all you saw was the stream and that's it. That was it. So you
Uh-huh.
saw the whole meet and greet situation, but
And you chose to be sassy?
I don't.
Uh-huh.
So that wasn't
Right.
intentional. I couldn't hear him. I couldn't hear him
Okay.
at all. All I could hear
Okay.
was the host, and that was that. I couldn't hear any of the contestants. There was some sort of like audio difficulty. So whenever he was speaking to me, I looked like an ignorant bitch. And
Yeah.
I don't mind that because I am,
Yeah.
but it wasn't intentional. Because if I knew that he was speaking to me, I would have been like, hey sis, what's up?
Okay, yeah. So that's a bit of an issue for
But
sure.
I couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then um,
Okay.
towards the end, I could hear him. And that's when
Yeah.
it sort of like really kicked in that I was interacting because otherwise it felt kind of like a little, you know, when you're streaming and you're doing some
Sorry,
sort
keep
of,
talking. Yeah. Yes.
are you sure? Okay. So, you know, when you're streaming, there's some sort of like a situation where you're doing some sort of like live feed situation and you kind of like have a outer body
Yeah.
sort of situation where you feel like the people that you're speaking to, even though they're like higher tier than you and everything. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
personally experienced it, but when you're speaking to someone who's a lot more higher tier than you, it doesn't feel real
Mhm.
until a certain moment hits. And for me, it was the second I heard his voice through my own earphones.
You were
I
like,
was like,
uh-oh.
great.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And then how was kind of, I mean, obviously, would you consider this to be like a big, like was that a big deal? Kind of like the whole thing? Oh, not that.
I think it was my
Hmm.
first pre-release game sort of deal. And it was my first kind of like
Yeah.
stream with a big person. Because there's not many people who can say like, oh, I just streamed with like a Grammy winning
Yeah.
like producer. So, and I was on front page, even though it was under someone else's username. We're gonna take that, and I'm gonna goop it, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that
exactly. I
that was
mean,
my
you were
front page
featured, you
moment.
were literally on the front page. So,
Yeah,
like, why wouldn't you say that? Yeah,
I saw my
exactly.
name on the stream.
And then, I mean, this is very like industry talk, but like, did anything come out of that? Like, did this open any doors? Obviously, this is what we all think about. Especially with a front page moment, a big sponsorship moment. Like, did that do anything?
So, for me personally, I think for the other girls who participated, and I think
Hmm.
specifically the girls who
Yeah.
participated, Zombie Kills particularly, I think because her name was so like her username, she managed to gain, a little bit of kind of like people who recognize her from it type of deal. But because
Right.
my name was just DJ Passion on the stream
Hmm.
and no like PassionsPlanet, no one knew
Okay.
how to find me. So it was a bit more harder in order to kind of like find any sort of like
Okay.
support that would come after that. But I'm a part of the Harmonix
Okay.
Discord, who are the developers of the game. And just like popping in there real quick right after the stream, I had a bunch of people just
Yeah.
kind of be like,
So
hi.
did you get like
So that was
I guess
nice.
did you kind of have like a positive experience from the whole thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's positive. It's just I was glad it was
Sure.
over because it was very overwhelming. There was a lot to handle in regards to getting the PC, um, kind of like dealing with the live scenario, definitely presenting
Hmm.
female for the first time on camera that I had to get over like real quick. Like the second you sat in front of a chair and you were on the
Yeah, like
camera,
that was
I couldn't move anywhere.
this is it.
Like I was like, I could go live at any
Yeah,
moment. The camera's going to be
yeah,
on me.
yeah.
I don't have a choice. So it was just a lot of
Right.
good fears. I think for in terms of like support afterwards, I don't think I
Mhm.
could really like give a toss about that. I think for me, it was just the fact that
Yeah.
I was throwing myself out there in such short time and just being like,
Yeah.
let's go. This is a big opportunity. No one's heard from me
Right.
since like the Pride stream. And all of a sudden, I'm like the next DJ gig that
Mhm.
I'm doing is with Diplo.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it truly came out of nowhere, and it
so
was such
I,
like, at least
yeah,
for me as like a fan, like it was a big like, oh my goodness moment. Um
I did have a couple DMs of people
yeah.
just being like, is this actually real and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not just sitting here like making the edit for myself and being
Okay.
like, this is what's
And so does
happening.
this mean that maybe like let's look forward to like, 2021 for Passion? Are we expecting some fuser gameplay? What are you looking at going forward?
I think for me, I'm going to be taken away from the fuser and I'm actually going to be like
Okay.
producing actual sets,
Yeah.
like actual DJ sets. So that's one ambition that I really want to do is particularly like throw out
Mhm.
SoundCloud mixes, stuff like that. Um, and I'm trying to work with a couple of other queer DJs on Twitch. I won't name names. But until the plans are like finalized, I do want to do some sort of like big conundrum of an event
Yeah.
with like other queer DJs because I think it's such an unrepresented kind of
Yeah.
like area of the queer community, and yet we all worship
Well, that's
music
the
to some
thing when I
degree.
think about kind of like quote unquote like queer scenes. I think music and clubs and like underground and this kind of thing is actually like a big part of that. So to hear you say that like
Yeah,
it's a little bit different, I would love to hear like more about that.
I think
Okay.
I mean in Twitch in particular, I think because of
Yeah.
obviously the DMCA situation, I think it's a very conflicting thing where so much of us want
Yeah.
to showcase our music tastes.
Yeah.
Even if we're just playing a bop in the background, even if we just want to show like a funny meme involving like, I don't know, BB
Yeah.
Rexa falling over or something, or like anything involving a pop
Yeah.
star who's doing like a messy thing.
Yeah.
But yet we can't do that because of so many restrictions. I want to figure out a way of
Yeah.
doing something that
Yeah.
involves Twitch, but off Twitch. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of ways of like doing it. So I'm 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 always a
Yeah. Can we
conceptual girl when it comes
well,
to
can we then expect
what you
maybe
want.
like, you know, Passion Productions, something like that, a little something original, something that's not under the DMCA?
So I think okay. I wasn't gonna say this because I wanted to wait for a little while. No, this wasn't actually planned in any type of way. I actually wasn't going to say this, but I think I'm actually going to dip my toe into some music
Yeah.
into this year, and yeah,
Okay. I mean, I
that's
love
all I'm going to say.
that.
If you want a little bit of like
Sure.
a genre synopsis, I'll say
Okay.
it's very skanky, very poppy, very fun. Think I think
Okay.
noise, but good.
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
Charlie
yeah.
XCX is good. Like
Yeah,
like there's you know, it's all
yeah,
that
yeah,
hurts a
yeah.
little bit.
Like
Oh, that's
this
kind of a lot.
literally the lyrics are three words repeated over and over again, but also I am
Yeah,
dancing. Okay, well, I love that. That's so
yeah.
exciting then. Yeah.
She's just singing about her tits, but you know what? I don't have any, but let's go.
What anything else? Like, can we expect some gameplay? Are there things that are scratching the
Yeah,
itch?
so games for me is such a rocky area. So I think main content
Mhm.
wise, I'm aiming for YouTube. Sorry, Twitch, if you're listening out there. I think that's the home for like video essays and things like that for me. I think I'm straying away from specific streamy
Mhm.
kind of like typical streamer stuff and going for video game analysis. And I want to delve into very unique
Yeah.
things like dance games, like when Beyonce almost had like a
Yeah.
video game that no one knows about, or when Britney Spears had a video game in 2002 or things like that, and get into very
Yeah.
specific music-based stuff, but still
Yeah.
with a subgenre, or get into favorite games of mine, or how I recognize like my identity thanks to
Hmm.
things like PlayStation Home, um, or just very specific things to me, but stuff that I can still look back
Yeah.
on and appreciate, because I will always say that I want to make
Absolutely.
content
Yeah.
for me.
No, I love the idea of that.
And then Twitch wise, I think I'm looking at streams now and then. It's going to be scheduled, but I don't think it's going to be like 3 times a week, that type of deal. I think it's going to be one or
Yeah.
twice every 2 weeks type of deal, because Twitch started to become a very draining thing for me to do. I wasn't looking forward to streams. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is my schedule day. It wasn't like, oh boy, I gotta like showcase this thing. As much as I was enjoying the content I was making, it was like, oh, I gotta play a
Right.
game
Right.
today. Oh, let's do this game. It wasn't like I want to play I
Yeah.
want to play this game. Let's get into this game, because I'm not that much of a gamer, ironically. And I would only really play games as a kid for like shits and giggles. Like I would really just pick up a game and just be like, this
Yeah.
is fun. I want to kick people. Let's kick Marge Simpson down like the
Yeah.
road. It wasn't like let's get into this. Like, come on, bros, COD.
Absolutely.
And I want to find the right spot for me where I can encompass kind of gaming while also still appreciating, like my
Yeah.
craft and everything else I do. So I think it's going to be, very much like a
Yes.
clusterfuck of creativity, but I think I want to do music. I want to do mixes. I want to do DJ sets. I want to do more
Yeah.
pride based stuff, especially like June is rolling up and it's going to
Yeah.
come here as quick as possible. And I want to do, something similar to what I did last year, but I want to
Absolutely.
make it bigger and better.
Yeah.
I want to make it more interactive. And I just want to do things that I can like
Yes.
positively brag
Yeah.
about
Absolutely.
and just be like, let's go. So yeah, the aim is like ending this year with like a huge repertoire of, all genres of things. Even, starting up a Patreon and getting into film, because I really do love films. And I really just
Yeah.
want to do everything that I can. And I know that sounds like a lot. And you're probably inner screaming to yourself, like if you had to do all of this, you'd be like, I'm good.
I
I'll just play my
mean,
Final Fantasy
I
for now.
decided that I was going to
But
run a weekly podcast in
but
drag.
I
So,
yeah. You I think you also
yes.
understand like the
Yeah.
drive I have, because when it comes to it, it's like I
Mhm.
want to produce something that people can intake and actually enjoy. I don't want to just create, a stream that you can pick up. And because I stream so
Yeah.
consistently, you're not looking forward to the stream. I want you to pick up my content and be like, this tastes delicious. Let's go
Yes.
for the rounds
Absolutely.
like
Yeah. I
next
think a
time.
lot about that for sure in terms of like, if I can identify that little moment or that little something that really like makes me feel good and also seems to be unique enough that it's got people's attention, then I am going to drive that into the fucking ground, right? So like, oh, you like to
Yeah.
hear me talk about stuff? Fine, I have 2 podcasts now. Oh, you like, this and that? Great, I'm going to start writing about it. All that kind of stuff. And I can really see that in terms of like what you're talking about, where you're like, oh, you liked that event, well now I'm going to do it bigger and better.
Yeah, I want to
Yes,
make people sick
absolutely.
of me. That's like
Yeah.
that's a go. Is if everybody, I will say particularly, I want to make people sick
Hmm.
of me, but not my content. So every time you
Yeah.
see me, there's something fresh, but you're sick of seeing my
Yeah.
face because you're like, oh, here's that bitch, like with the big tits again, and here she goes bragging about this music thing. But at the same time, you listen to it and you're
Yeah.
like,
I
oh,
mean, it's
turn
about
that shit
being a
up,
fully
let's go.
rounded entertainer, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's not enough anymore to just do one thing. Um, and that's sad in some respects. Because yeah.
and it's fine if you do, because I think the people who
Yes.
can pull that off have
Well, and
such a unique thing.
yeah.
And I wish that I could. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, I wish I could just play one game and just be
Yes.
happy and
But
providing that. But when
yeah.
you're a creative,
No,
you
no, it's
can't
okay.
handle it. Sorry, go
I'm
on.
a big interrupter. Um, I think there's also something about like how there's a lot of stuff that people don't see that you're doing, where it might seem like maybe you are only doing one thing, but then like I think a lot about like some streamers that do one thing, but then I also know they work like full time, very successfully in a job that fulfills them in like really great ways, right? And I
Yeah.
think it says something that we are just all seeking out like the multitude of passions that we're capable of. And some of those are more visible than others. And so if all of the content that we want to produce
Yeah.
and feel passionate about is going to be in your face and make you hate us, well, that's just the name of the game, right?
There's also so much prep when it comes to streaming. I know a lot of people just kind of foresee it as, you sit down and you
Yeah.
press start broadcasting. And I wish that was the
Yeah.
case, especially during a DJ stream, because if I just sat there and I was like, "Oh, here it plays all in
Isn't it just
entirety, I'm
one
not
big
doing anything,"
MP4?
then I would have loved that. Yeah, of course. That's what a lot of people actually thought. They thought it was pre-recorded. I had a couple of friends just gonna be like, "Did you actually do that live?" And I was like, some of it
Yeah.
was, particular mixes I knew I wouldn't have been able to
That's
pull
so
off.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest of it, I mean, I wasn't gonna sit there doing, like, 6 hours, like,
Yeah, no, of
entirely
course.
myself, but for the most part, I would say, like, 5
Yeah.
hours was at least
I love
me,
that.
because I wanted it to be something that I could do, but there was so much prep. There was, like,
Yeah.
messaging
Yeah.
people, and that
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
that's a lot of prep.
Yeah.
Because you ask people to record something, and then they're like, "Yeah, I get it for you," and then
Waiting.
you're like,
Yeah.
"Did you
I
get
think,
it?"
yeah. There's something
And they're like,
about
"Oh, next
like
stream." And then you're like,
collaboration, which is so, and especially this is something I'm finding out like lately. It is so rewarding. And for every this is not like a stab at anyone that I've collaborated with, because like every single collaboration that I've done, every single thing that I've organized has been so rewarding and felt so good. But yes, you are hurting cats, right? Like yes, you are trying to make
Yeah.
everything look perfect. Get everyone organized to do the same thing, and then just trying to take care of yourself as
It
well,
is
right?
so much work. Yeah, it's ugh, I can't there's, like, a huge list of names of people who I
Yeah.
couldn't even get participate in because
Mhm.
they just either didn't respond or they just didn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't get back in time. And it hurt because I was like, "I'm trying to make this into, like, a queer
Yeah.
celebration. Do you
No.
not see what this is?" Like, without sounding too like dance moms, I'm just like, I really wanted to make it into a monumental moment of just, like,
Yeah.
celebrating queer art and queer music and everything else, and yet it was so
Yeah.
difficult to maintain. But for the people I did have participating, I'm so happy, including yourself. Like, I was so happy to just get everybody involved in talking about their favorite songs or a bop that they're enjoying and just
No,
have like a
absolutely.
fun dance party. And to add to
Mhm.
that, I wasn't even on cam for in that. And I had like 60 to 100 viewers sometimes. And it was just mind boggling to me that people still willing to come through and just appreciate the music and listen to such a celebration
Well,
of
I think
queer
especially for like
identities.
this past like Pride in particular, I think that was all something that we were all desperately craving, right? And I think you particularly
Yeah.
targeted something that was needed.
It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't planned in that extent, but then when I did it, I was like, oh
Yeah.
god,
People
people
really
actually wanted
wanted it.
this. Like
No,
they
absolutely.
needed this escapism. Because I didn't really consider like no one had been to a club or no one had been, kind of like
Yeah.
clawing for that
Yeah.
fun environment. And every time I checked the chat, it was like people getting their life. It was people kind of being like, "What's this song?" Or like putting like a dance emo or like a BTTV, like I don't know, like
Like
a
a
robot type of
yeah.
dance. Like anyone was doing anything. Um, but I don't know. It makes me really happy because it's something that I poured my heart into, and
Yeah.
all it did was great good. And
Good.
a little flex to myself there, but it's nice when you actually create something and it actually made people happy instead of them just being like, "Oh,
Yeah,
this is fucking
yeah,
shit. Can you
no,
get off the stage,
absolutely.
girl?"
I mean, I
Like,
don't think it's a flex to be like, I made people happy, and that makes me happy. I think that's, I feel like there's an ego attached to a flex, whereas that was not selfless, but the result.
you sometimes do
Yeah.
doubt
Oh yeah.
like your content though, and you sometimes do doubt, do people get happiness from this or do they watch
Sure.
me just to like
Hmm.
taunt me? Because I've had plenty of that in the past when it comes to
Yeah.
like viewers and stuff, and it's like make passion mad day,
Let's
and I'm
go.
like,
I'm
all right, let's
mad.
go. But that whole time just
That's
felt like
lovely.
people celebrating, and every donation I got felt like people wanting to donate, or it
Yeah.
wasn't like service. It actually felt like people were
Yeah.
paying like club
Yeah.
entry, you know? That's how I saw it. Every time
Yeah.
they donated, they were
Cover.
like, let's go. Let's
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Ah. So I guess kind of to wrap up, I guess like what are you most excited about for like this upcoming year? And this doesn't have to be personally related, but it can be. But like what is the thing
Okay.
that like you think is really gonna drive you going forward in this upcoming year?
I think
Hmm.
presenting myself is gonna
Yeah.
be it for me because I'm only really now throughout the past few months just really getting the drive to. And I think once February comes, I'm just gonna drop all of my shit and I'm just gonna go head
Yeah.
first with like content creation
Yeah.
and that'd be it. Because that's the only thing that's always held me back. And I feel like I would be doing so much right now if a year ago I could just
Yeah.
like sit down and just
Yeah.
be like, do it.
No,
But it's a
absolutely.
lot because I can't really put it to words really, but it's just, it takes so much strength to be able to actually compose yourself and actually feel like you're being the standard of what
Mhm.
you should look when you're on stream. I'm sure you feel exactly the same when you're in drag. It's like, it's
Yeah.
it's frustrating that you have to feel that way. And even when you're out of drag, I'm sure you feel exactly the same way when it
Yeah.
comes to presenting yourself a certain way. You have to look put together, but at the same time, you have to look like you didn't make too much effort and stuff like that. And for me, I think my struggle is watching myself transition on stream. That's going to be
Yeah.
like the killer for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I
Do
fear.
you
But I
do
kind of
you
have to like
feel
suck it up.
um pressure from the idea of like queer representation?
Yes, because I know that once there's one trans girl streaming, then it's like you represent that. Like, it's not a
Yeah.
great thing to kind of recognize, but you know, if you're the first trans streamer that someone sees and you're not looking the part or you're not looking, um, you know, as good as what you should in their eyes for what their perspective of what a trans woman should look like, then
Mm.
that's it for them. They're not going to go to another trans stream again. They're not going to like portray,
Right.
they're not going to seek it out. Or I think for me, it's um, I kind of have to represent myself as trans. That's another thing that I'm kind of struggling to grasp. Is that maybe going forward with the content, I don't label myself as a trans streamer. Maybe I'm just a streamer. And if someone happens to ask, "Are you trans?" I
Yeah.
just say, "Yeah, bitch, what's up?"
So do you think going forward,
So
I mean, passion is passion? Yeah.
I think so because after all, it's Passion's Planet, and I've always seen the planet as the kind
Yeah.
of the hub, if you will say,
Yeah.
of all of the content. And I don't know. I think gender really kind of drags down a lot of people when it comes to their content, and you feel a need to
Mm.
introduce yourself, even sexuality. And I know just recently on Twitter, people were just talking about like
Yeah.
being outright kind of speaking out about like what their content is and who they are and their sexuality and their gender and stuff. And I feel a little bit like
Mm.
weighed down by that because I don't want to make myself consumable. That's
Sure.
one thing that I would always go against. I would never sit there and I would just be like, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
like blend in. You're not gonna know,
Mm.
and you're just gonna consume my content. Like if someone ever outright asked me, I would tell them, but I never want to just sit there and make that my content because I feel like that's already restricted
Mm.
so much of my life as it is that I always have to proclaim that I'm trans, or I have to always proclaim I have to prove my trans
Yeah.
existence, and I'm just sick of doing that. So I feel like going forward, I'm gonna maybe stray away a little from like proclaiming that I'm trans, but
Yeah.
without malicious intention. It's just more. I'm kind of sick of that. Not pulling me down, but just more taken
Mhm.
away from my existence. It starts to feel like I'm um, kind of like a Polly
Sure.
Pocket in a sense. Like you're picking her up, and it's like I'm gonna
Right.
pick up the trans one today, and you're gonna check them out, rather than just being like, oh, I want to like rate this
Yeah.
streamer because they're great. I want to follow this streamer
Mhm.
because they're producing something that's cool. And I don't want to be seen as someone who's you know ticking the
Yeah.
checkbox of who you should follow or something like that. Sorry, I kind of went on
No, I think
a
that
weird
I think
tangent there,
that
but it's just
yeah.
I don't know
No,
how else to
absolutely.
describe it.
Oh, well. What a note to end on. But I think
Yeah. I will
yes,
talk
no, we
about
did
all
all the
of the
fun
fun
stuff already.
things once again.
Okay, we can do it again.
No, we can do it again.
Okay, well in that case, I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you, what they should expect, and you know, all that fun outro stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I'm PassionsPlanet on. I've got it on everything. Yeah, I had to double check in my brain then. I was like, yeah. So if you honestly just put any social media / PassionsPlanet, you'll be able to find me. I'm looking into returning for February, and then you won't struggle finding me. I'm sure I'll be plastered on your timeline somewhere, even if it's like just
Yeah.
in your suggested box or something. But I think, yeah, I think I'll be producing all sorts of content ranging from music, DJing, gaming, retrospectives, even just, if you enjoy like a little just chatting situation. I know Sierra used to always come into my streams because I
Yeah.
used to have such a mellow, calm voice during my streams, and
Nice.
I'm an easy background girl. So, yeah, just expect a really positive environment. Yes, I can be very chaotic. Yes, I can scream about, the several things that Jake Gyllenhaal can do to me,
Uh-huh.
but I'm
Right.
I mean good. And yeah, just prepare for
Great.
for a
I
year
love
of
that. Well, the year
passion.
of passion. Okay, in
Yeah.
that case, thank you everyone who's here in the stream or who is listening to the recording afterwards for joining us for this episode of Myst Minutes. I've been Sierra Myst. I'm your lemon lime drag queen from space, and I've been so thankful to be joined by Passion. Please make sure you follow her everywhere, and look forward to the next episode, which is going to be with games researcher Dr. Jennifer Whitson, and so that will be next Thursday, and I'm very excited for that. Thank you all so much, everyone, and I hope to see you all for the next one. Goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye, Passion? Great, thanks.
Oh yeah, bye.
Bye.
Wait. Bye.
Perfect.
There you go. I gotta be nicer.
Okay, everyone. So I'm gonna take just a quick break to wrap stuff up, and then we are going to go into a raid to someone. So I hope you will stick around for that because everyone loves a raid. Everyone loves to take that energy somewhere. But just give me a hot moment, and we'll be right back. Okay? Hee hee.